So I'm once again recording from my parents' house. I've got some stuff going on in the suburbs. This week, the book that I read was Adultolescense, which is a book of poetry by Gabbie Hanna. I kept saying Gabbie Hanna last week, and I don't know why I pronounced it that way in my head. It's very obviously Hannah, but you know, sometimes you just say something and it sounds right and you just go with it. It's Gabbie Hanna, not Gabbie Hanna. I'm sorry for mispronouncing it. I'm going to rate it a 3 out of 5. It was a really quick read because it was poetry, but the thing about it that was weird for me, it felt like it didn't have direction. It seemed like it was trying really hard to be funny at some points, trying really hard to be serious. It just felt like off kilter and not in a deliberate way. It just felt like she didn't really know what direction she wanted to go with this poetry. Like, for example, I'm gonna read some of the poems just so I have clear examples of what I'm talking about. There's one called Cliches. Is it never give up on the one you love, or if you love them, let them go? Because these quotes are getting confusing, and honestly, I just don't know. Because they say when it's right, it's easy, but also that relationships take a lot of work. Most would agree on the first one, unless their loved one is a jerk. They say that time heals all wounds, but also absence makes a heart grow fonder. How both sentiments could be true, one truly has to ponder. So should we have a lot in common, or do opposites attract? I suppose that depends on if you have similar interests to the chick with the awesome rack. This poem isn't terrible, but just the way that it ends leaves me annoyed. Like, it started off like trying to mean something, and like the point that it's making is that cliches often contradict. I love that as a concept. Like, it's very true. Cliches do often contradict, and people spout these cliches when we have like broken hearts or when we're in a relationship or whatever. Like, I completely get what she's trying to say, and I like it, but the way that it ends, it just leaves me so annoyed and unsatisfied. Like, I suppose that depends on if you have similar interests to the chick with the awesome rack. Like, you make a boob joke at the end, it's like, it could have been more, it could have been better. That's one thing that bothered me. My favorite thing about poetry is that poetry makes you feel something. Even if you can't quite empathize, you can sympathize like really strongly with that person. You can always tie a little bit of what they're saying to something in your life or to someone you know. I think that's why we like it. I haven't read a lot of poetry, admittedly. I watch a lot of poetry. Sometimes I'll go on button poetry spirals and just watch tons of different people. But for a lot of the poems in this book, it just seems like it's like a joke a lot of the time, and like maybe that is deliberate, but I just wanted to feel so much more. I mean, the title is Adultolescence. It's supposed to be playing on the part of you that feels like an adult and the part of you that has no idea what you're doing, and like that's brilliant as a concept, but I just felt like the execution was off. Like, this is No Gravity Part 2 by Rudy Francisco, who is an incredible poet. And he makes you feel so much in such a short span of time. Like, a lot of his poems, at least in this book, aren't super long, but they feel so deliberate, and it's not even like being sad all the time. Like, you feel a lot of things. You feel things when you're reading it. So like this one is called Empty. Some people will take until you have nothing left and then hold a grudge against your hands for being empty. Like, that's so good. Like, it's just simple, and you can empathize, you can sympathize. Like, it doesn't have to be this whole big nonsensical poem for it to be interesting. Like, it can just be a feeling that you get, and that's what I like about Rudy Francisco. I don't know, I just feel like there are a lot of things that you can do with poetry, and there's about a handful of poems. I actually wrote each one down that I really felt something reading, whether it was a laugh or like I relate to that. Otherwise, most of the time, I wasn't relating to it. I didn't feel anything while reading it. In fact, I'm gonna be honest, the only reason I finished this book this week is because I knew I could finish it quickly, and I wanted to have some time since last week I read that nonfiction, and it was a lot more intense. This week was a book of poetry. I figured I could finish it. And there are some poems in here, I think mostly the shorter ones, that are the ones that actually made me feel something. I'm gonna read a couple. It's like when they were good, they were really good, and everything else was just kind of like, yeah, okay. So this one's called Best. Everyone tells me I deserve better. I know I deserve better, but I don't want better. I want you. Simple concept, amazing execution. I felt something when I read that. I felt like this happened to me, like I completely understand this. Like this one, Sup, is the title. You really hurt my feelings, but you're the person I talk to when my feelings are hurt, so this is kind of awkward. Anyway, what's up? Like, a little funny, but I get that. Like, I get that. I don't know. They're not bad poems. They're just not, I don't feel anything for the most part. I just feel like I wanted to feel more reading this, and I'm disappointed that I didn't, you know? I think there's a lot of really cool illustrations in here. She did the illustrations as well, and I really like a lot of the illustrations. I think they're super interesting and funny and like well done. And you know, a lot of this, maybe I just don't get it. Maybe it's not my type of poetry. You know, it's all subjective, but like, just for me, this is how I felt about it. I'm gonna chalk it up to like, maybe I didn't get it. I'm sure there were a lot of like fans of her YouTube who really loved it, and like, that's totally fine. And if you're looking for like a quick book of poetry to read, like this is definitely the one to go with. If you want to give it a read, you definitely should. I didn't hate it. I just didn't love it. I wanted to feel more. So, what am I reading next? This Heart of Mine. It's by C.C. Hunter, and this is one of the books that I got from conference. This is an advanced uncorrected proof, which means this is like one of the second to last drafts before they release the full novel. Basically, it's about a girl who has an artificial heart. A donor heart becomes available, but the donor heart is from a kid who killed himself. She went to school with this kid, and he has a twin brother, and so she links up with his twin to kind of figure out why he killed himself. I think it's a really interesting premise, and I think that's why I picked it up. I have already started reading it, and I'm hoping that it picks up soon. C.C. Hunter is apparently a New York Times bestselling author, so she knows what she's doing, and we'll see if it's any good. I'm excited to read it. Like I said, I think it's a really interesting premise, and I think that it'll be good to go back to a YA novel, my heart and soul. And yeah, I think that's all I have for you guys this week. Adultolescense by Gabbie Hanna, 3 out of 5. If you want a quick and easy poetry book to read with lots of awesome illustrations, this is the way to go. And I will see you next week with This Heart of Mine.